Yes, welcome all you brewers, distillers, hobbyists of all types. Yes, the best part of my day is the time I get to spend with you. And today is one of those days. Now, I hope you find this as educational as it is enjoyable for me to produce. Now, you see the whiteboard behind me. Please don't let that scare you. I know a lot of people see the whiteboard and they run for the hills. We're not going to use the whiteboard today. It's not necessary. This is purely a demonstration and an explanation that will unlock the mysteries of proportional integral derivative heat control.
Come all you moonshiners if you want to hear.
Okay, now, you know, it's been years now, and I believe my first published video that is still on the YouTube channel is from, I believe it was 2016. I have a few before that on PID controllers. And I've since taken those down because those are like really, really old, and I just wanted to do them better. But you can see I've been at this for well over 8 years. So, and I'm not an expert. Nobody should ever claim to be an expert. But I do understand the process in how a proportional integral derivative controller actually works. So, and there are thousands and thousands of people out there that are using these and are having great results. And I get these reviews all the time, and I appreciate that. Of course, there are always challenges, and that's understandable too, but there are ways around that. Now, I've received information, I've been told, I've read some blogs. I'm pretty popular on some blogs, and they're not very flowery, but that's okay. I have remained silent. I just let it go. You know, I'm not here to debate with anybody about how a PID works and whether it's valuable or not. I just know what I know, and I can demonstrate what I know, so there's no reason for me to get into that argument. But I've remained silent long enough, and it's time, really, to try to dispel some of those rumors and myths, because it's really, and I understand, it's really easy to misunderstand how a PID works. So let's get right to it, all right? Now, we do know that a PID, we use the term PID, it's real simple. It's just nothing more than a smart, precise heat controller, okay? That's really what it is. It's just a smart, precise heat controller, and it does it for you without you having to do any adjustments. That's really all it is. Now, and the way it actually operates, the brain behind it is the actual PID itself, and that's the unit that has the algorithm in it that compares all of these values and does calculations, and that's behind the scenes, okay? That's the technical aspect of it. But it does it through what we call a solid state relay. Now here's where people get it confused. And that's why I'm not saying anybody's wrong. I'm just saying I understand why you misunderstand it. Because it's true. Here's the first answer I always get. George, it only turns on and then turns off. So it's either on or off. I can do that, and you're right. But that's all it does. And oh, by the way, I can prove that to you. Hook up 12 volts to it on the bottom here, and the light comes on, it comes on, turns on. Turn the light off, it turns off. The same light that's here, the out light, when it flashes, it turns on and turns off. So really all it's doing is turning on and turning off. Well, there's a whole lot more to it than that. Let me demonstrate something for you here. True in fact, a negative, and I've got this is a 12 volt, this is a DC generator. That's all it is. I can adjust the volt, you know. And I'll put the positive here. Now when I connect that, you can see that, you see the red light is on. When I disconnect it, the red light goes out. That's that little light right there. And so when I reconnect it, yeah, the red light comes on. Now that just means that it's energized. What is energized? It's the optical sensor that's on this end. All right. So there's no physical connection contacts to burn out. There's an optical connector. Again, that's a little bit more technical than we need to get into today. Now this solid state relay only turns on and off and operates, this is a little technical, at the zero crossing of the sine wave. Therefore, you don't get sparks. You understand, sometimes you'll plug in an appliance, or you'll unplug an appliance and you get a spark. Well, You've actually, just based on timing, which is sheer luck, is you've pulled that plug out at a point where it was not at the zero crossing of your sine wave. That's all it is. It's just, there's a reason. You follow me? Okay. But a solid state relay doesn't allow that to happen. It only crosses at the zero crossing, which makes it much, much more efficient and lasts a lot longer. Okay. I want to show you this. Now remember, a PID controller, it just in general terms has a feedback mechanism, and that's this. This is my thermocouple, my K-type probe thermocouple. This is what that looks like. And I use these. I've also got them with the 1/2 inch threaded portion on them. It all depends on what people want. And I use aviation plugs on this end because it just makes it look neater, and it works a whole lot better. These are attached using the rubber bung that comes with most stills, or you could screw them in. Yeah, you know, you could drill a hole in your column and you could tap it and screw this in. Or you could put an adapter, you could screw it in, or you can stick it right into the bung. And that is what I have in the top of this column. That's my Mighty Mini. Now I've got water in there right now, and I'm using water as my test. Yeah. So that's how this works. So this is the feedback mechanism. It makes this a closed loop system. So it's constantly checking the temperature, comparing the temperature to the set value. And I have this set at 175 degrees. You can see that right here. And it's right now 175.1, 175. Okay, so it's bouncing around 173.3. I can change that value, and this is the perceived value. And that's what my thermal probe is sensing. It's feeling that temperature and is comparing it to this temperature. Now what's happening inside the PID itself? Oh, it's just, George, it's just turning on and then it's turning off. Well, if you understand how a PID works, that turning on and turning off is based on a timing function in a cycle to provide the power necessary in order to achieve a temperature without running at 100%. What do I mean by that? Okay, I have a 3,000 watt element in this Mighty Mini. Yeah, that's a lot of overkill on 240 volts. And at 100% power, a 3,000 watt element will draw about 13 amps. Okay? But that's a lot of energy that goes into that. And that energy can actually cause a wide temperature spike. But the PID can control that. Let me show you how this actually works then. Okay? If you've got it running, say I'm at 174.3 and I'm still set at 175. So you can see my little red light comes on and goes off. If I just push the set button one time, it displays an A and then there's a number there. That's the percentage of power that it's sending to the element for the element to operate. All right. Now, see, now here's where people get confused. Now, but how do you know that that's actually working? Well, I've got a volt amp meter connected to it, and I want you to watch this, and you'll see right in there's 3 amps. It's at 10%, 36%. It's at 8 amps now. Now it's back down to 1 amp because it's only running at 2%. You see, the PID's sensing what is the temperature spread between the set value and the perceived value, and it's trying to provide only enough energy to maintain that set value. So it works. This is almost like someone standing in front of it going up, down, up, down, up, down. It's doing it itself though. That's really what a PID does. It kind of simplifies the process. They're very, very good for reflux stills. But of course, in a pot still, you understand this. In a pot still, you'll start off at a certain temperature and then you'll progressively increase that temperature in order to draw more of the ethanol out before you get to the tails. Well, that's simple as well because all you have to do is increase the set value on your own increments, on your own time frame. Now, let me turn that back off. What else can this thing do? See, PIDs are really, really capable. And they can do many, many things. Now, watch this. If I push this, the button next to the set button is called the AT run button. Okay? AT, auto tune and run. If I push and hold that, the run light comes on, and then if I push now I'm looking at, it's at 21%. It's providing 21% power, but it's in run, which means it's going to stay there, and I can adjust that. So now I can use it, and look at that, my temperature is starting to really climb because I'm providing 28% power to that element, so that element is now on constantly. Let me turn it down. If I turn that element down, I'm going to turn it down to, let's turn it down to 2%. You should see the temperature start to drop a little bit because that element is just barely on now. And remember, we talked about that before in one of the other videos. When the amperage and the voltage drop in a rated, we use a 240 volt element and we only provide 120 volts to it. Well, the element only operates at 25%. So what that means is for a 3,000 watt element, if you run that on 120 volts, 25% of that 3,000 watts is only 750 watts. So that means that this would be operating as a 750 watt element, not as energetic. How's that? Not as energetic as it could be, unless you ran it at 100%, which would be 3,000 watts. So you can see that your PID does that all the time. It's constantly doing that. Okay, let me turn, to turn that the manual run off, all you do is push that that button is the AT run button and turn it off. And now you'll notice, since I'm way above my set temperature, it's at 0. That's the output percentage of the PID to the element. That element is totally off. Now when that temperature drops down below, it starts getting closer to 175, my PID is going to take that. That's what I love about them, is it starts to take that spread, and as that spread starts to close up, it makes a calculation that says at the rate that it's moving here in a couple of extra seconds, it's going to drop below it, so let me give it a boost of energy. And then it'll throw in a 3 or 4, 8, 9% for just a couple of seconds to try to arrest that drop so it doesn't drop below. And then it does the same thing. It shuts off before it gets to the temperature so it doesn't go above. And that's where you get the precise control. Oh my goodness. These things are, see now, for those who have misunderstood how a PID works, now you understand. It's relatively simple. See here, it's 4% because it's at 176.3. So what it's trying to do is it's trying to arrest that drop. And what it'll do is it'll balance itself back out at 175 degrees. Now, hopefully I've answered all the questions, and really what I wanted to do is I wanted to come online and make sure that people understand that this is not a who's right and who's wrong, okay? PIDs are not for everyone. I think they are, but as we all know, it's really whatever matches your personality. Here shortly we're going to do another one on, and I also produce pulse width modulators, PWMs. The only difference really is a pulse width modulator doesn't have a feedback mechanism, so it puts all the onus on the individual to operate, as opposed to this that has a feedback mechanism and it operates on its own. You're going to have to provide your own thermometer if you're using a pulse width modulator. Now, yeah, we had that. We also got the talking parrot head. Yeah, there's a lot of things we get to do out here in the shop. Now, on an upcoming video, you notice, I know most of you have noticed on the past several videos that I've got this chemistry set up back here, and I've been working diligently over about, I've been working on this for about 3 months now, and I'm working on a chemical development to test, to try to put, again, to try to dispel all the rumors and myths about methanol. I'm going to try to develop a home test that you can use a couple of drops. They call that a reagent, a couple of drops, and get a reaction to tell whether you have methanol or not. And remember, I've always said, you're not going to produce enough methanol in a still to hurt anybody unless you pull it out pure and consume it, which I wouldn't recommend you do anyway. I mean, at the bottom line, we don't separate methanol from beer. We don't separate it from wine. But for some reason, when it comes to spirits, we get all wrapped around the axle about it. I understand. I do. I understand. But just understand that there is a fear out there. There's an absolute myth and fear that still is going to make you go blind, it's going to kill you, and you're going to poison your neighbors. That's totally not true. Yeah, we've demonstrated that several times. So we're going to use that. I'm really, really close to coming up with that solution. Now, additionally, what we're going to prove on that is we're also going to prove point blank that methanol comes off first, doesn't smear through the whole run. I'll get to chemically, it molecularly prove that to you too. But then again, there'll always be someone out there who just doesn't agree, and I'm okay with that. But please be nice. Just be nice about it. That's all I ask. Until next time, yep, happy distilling.